So I'm pursuing my art career in my 50s, and I finally figured out what I want my niche to be and how I'm going to get there. So grab a cup of something delicious and settle in for a bit of a story time while I tell you how I got here and what my plans are to make it a reality. So hi, if you're new here, I'm Michelle, and I am documenting my journey to becoming a full-time artist and creator in my 50s. And maybe it's something that you can resonate with because maybe you're in the same boat as me and you need some inspiration, and it's just fun to watch other people struggle to do things and learn things. So if you're new here, welcome. We can go through this together. So basically at the age of 51, I decided that I wanted to pursue my art career again after 30 years of not doing anything artistic per se. I wanted to get back into doing something that I really enjoyed, that I really loved. After years of ending up working in corporate jobs that I hated, I've been ready to do something else and to get back into something that brings me joy, that I can make an income with, that I can create my own business with, because I love entrepreneurship and doing it yourself kind of thing with the freedom that comes with that. Yes, it could be harder work, but I still think that it's worth it in the end. So those are my goals, is to become a full-time self-employed artist. I currently work a day job. I'm currently working 4 days a week at my job. And I wanted to kind of go back a little bit to kind of give an origin story about how I got to this point, and then how I've decided what my niche is going to be and how I'm going to get there, and my 5 income streams that I plan on working on to make that happen. So if you're interested in that, just settle in and let's go over it. So basically how I got to this point in time today in June of 2024. Back in 2020, we all remember that fun time, I found myself getting divorced, which was great, fun. It's okay, we're still on good terms, it just didn't work out. But I ended up getting my own house, buying my own house from there. And then about a year after that, I suddenly decided that I should sell that house and take the money that I've made off of that and take a year off, because I was burnt out at this point. I was stressed out, burnt out. I think a lot of us were during that time of 2020, 2021. And I needed to figure something out, because I was at a point in my life where I was just stressed out and wondering, how did I get here? I'm not living a life that brings me any kind of joy. I'm working a job that I hate, that I just dreaded getting up every day and going to work, and I knew that this wasn't how life was meant to be lived. And I knew I had a lot more potential and things to offer the world, and that I could make something happen that would make life enjoyable, worth living, that I could contribute something to society in some way, that maybe I could help people and also bring myself some peace and some joy. So I decided to invest in myself, and I took the money from my house and I took a year off. I started renting. It's just me and my son. And I took a year off to basically decompress, to figure out who I was, what I wanted. I did a lot of self-care. I did a lot of work on myself, my inner work. I just took time to just figure out who I was again, because I think after so many years of being in relationships and working jobs I didn't like, that I was just like a robot, doing things that other people wanted me to do, doing what I thought was expected of me, doing what I thought was my only options. And I couldn't do it anymore. I was just like, I don't understand the point of living like this. So I was just in not a good place, but I took a year off to really work on myself and understood what it was that I needed. What did I need to do? What did I want to do? And it cost a lot of money to self-fund a year off, but I don't regret any of it. I think it was definitely worth it. And during that time, I just learned a lot about myself and who I am. And it took about 8 months into that journey to figure out that I wanted to get back into art, which is something that I have ignored for probably 30 years. It's probably been 30 years since I've really done art. I've done some creative things, but I haven't really done art, like painting, drawing, creating images of any kind. And it was kind of a really weird thing to realize, because I'm like, it seems so obvious, yet so not obvious at the same time, because I grew up in an age where it was still the starving artist mentality. If you did anything creative, then you wouldn't make money. You were going to be poor. So it didn't make sense to pursue anything artistic. You had to get a good job and be responsible to pay your bills. That's kind of the mentality I was growing up with. Like, I grew up and I was born in the 70s. I was a teenager in the 80s. In my 20s, it was in the 90s. So things were getting a little better. But, back in those days, it was like you needed to get a good, stable job that paid your bills. And while my parents never made me do that stuff, I was always very artistic and creative. They just wanted me to be happy and be able to support myself. They never told me what I had to do. And I don't think they could have, because I was kind of strong-willed and I just did what felt good to me at the time, and that's what I pursued. So I'll go back a little bit just for some context of why it makes sense where I am at this point. And it's just kind of funny how things come around in full circles. So I was always a creative, artistic child, and I was drawing from a very young age. I was constantly drawing horses in particular. I loved horses. And that's what I learned to draw when I was really small. I have tons of drawings that I just found recently, even from when I was about 14. I think those are the earliest things I kept. And there's a lot of horse drawings in there. But so I was always an artist. I loved to draw. In my teen years, I was doing a lot of animal drawings with pencil crayon, kind of realistic. I wanted to be like Robert Bateman. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a wildlife artist that was really popular in the 80s. And I just liked doing the details. I thought it was fun, and I loved animals, so I was doing that. I was just in high school, I was an art student. Anything that was creative in any way, that was my jam, and that's what I loved doing. And I never thought about the future or what I wanted to be when I grew up or anything like that. But then at the end of high school, it was time to apply for post-secondary, like college, university, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, I like drawing and I like fashion, so maybe I'll go to fashion design school. So I applied for fashion design school. I had also applied to a fine arts program at university, but didn't get in because my average wasn't quite high enough, because I really didn't care about school or my marks, so I didn't care about getting high marks. So it wasn't quite there where I needed to be, but I think everything happens for a reason, so that's fine. But I did end up going to fashion design school, which I loved. I went to Sheridan College in Oakville, Ontario, and I loved it. It was great. We learned pattern making and sewing and millinery, and we learned about textiles, and we did fashion illustration, which I really liked doing and was good at. But there was a lot of creative stuff, which I loved doing. But at the end of the 2-year program, I was left to be, well, what do I do now? I can either go sew for somebody or start my own line, which I didn't have any money to do because it's expensive to start a fashion line. But at my year-end fashion show, my model that I had that was modeling my outfits was in a program called Visual Merchandising and Display, which I had never even heard of. Nothing that ever came into my world before. I'd never heard the words visual merchandising. I'm like, what is that? And for those of you who don't know what visual merchandising is, it's basically the people that do all the displays. If you look in retail stores, anything that is like a window display or interior display, it involves the merchandising of the product on the shelves or racks, also the windows. Basically anything to do with the presentation to help companies sell their products. That's the visual merchandising. So visual display would be the pretty things that you see, and the merchandising just means the setup of the products in the store to make it the most sellable and attractive. So I found out about this, and it was a very hands-on, like we got to make our own props, and we got to do pretend window displays in the school, and we got to just be very creative and hands-on. We were constantly building things and drawing and making things, and it was it just, it covered all the basics of things that I love doing. It was great. So I took that, and then I got my first job out of college at the Gap in Toronto, doing visual merchandising there. But I really liked the job, and I loved living in Toronto and doing that. And I ended up a couple years into it getting offered a job at Marks and Spencer Canada back in the day. When did I get that job? I think it was in the late 90s. I got a job as a assistant knitwear buyer, and I'd never done anything like that. It was so much fun. I enjoyed it so much. Basically, my boss was in charge of women's casual wear, and I was her assistant for all of the knitwear side of things. And then there was another assistant that did wovens, and I did knit. So we dealt with like suppliers in China and samples and designs and tracking SKUs and all. It was very fun, and it was great, and I liked the company. Unfortunately, 9 months into that job, the company decided to pull out of Canada. So they're no longer here, and they have not been since the late 90s, unfortunately. So no more cookies for us, no more biscuits for us. And I was really sad about that because it was really fun. So when that closed, I got a little bit of a package and ended up deciding to get into fashion styling. So styling for photography and such for clothing. So I started getting into that, and that was fun, which led me into working in film and television. So I was working in film and television and in the wardrobe and costume department for about four or 5 years, I guess. And that was amazing. I think that was my favorite time in my whole life, that I enjoyed myself the most. I worked so hard, I hustled, but there was something so satisfying about that, about all the different jobs that I got to work on, and then continuously looking for new jobs and new networking and people to work with. But every job was different, so I was kind of doing the same thing, but the jobs were different, so that brought a lot of variety to me. So there was some consistency, but yet there was something new all the time, and I was meeting new people, and just working behind the scenes in film was such an exciting place to be. It was long days and it was hard work sometimes, but I think when I look back, I feel like that's the happiest that I ever was doing a job. It was amazing. But then when I was 29, I ended up getting pregnant, and you can't work in film and have a child because it's just not possible, because you have to be away for too long, and it just doesn't work well with having a small child. So I found myself as a single mother living in Toronto, and I couldn't work in film anymore because who's going to look after my son? So I made the hard decision. I ended up moving back to my hometown where all my family was, because I wanted my son to grow up in a place surrounded by his aunts, his uncles, his cousins, his grandparents, and live in a nice neighborhood, which I wouldn't have been in Toronto at all. And so I made that decision that then his growing up would be my priority until he didn't need me anymore and he was independent, and then it would be my time to pursue my things again. So I found myself living back in my hometown and working in retail. I went back into merchandising, which was okay, but then it got into like management because I was trying to follow the money. I needed money to pay my bills. I ended up getting married also around that time, which helped. And I was just on the constant search for a job that gave me some satisfaction, something that made me feel like I was doing something that I should be doing, that I was excited to get up for work every day, and that made enough money to pay the bills. And I never quite found that. But anyways, I did switch jobs a lot. I tried a lot of different companies. I even tried working in banking. I took a course to be a mortgage broker, which I realized wasn't going to be a good thing for me. There's lots of money to be made, but it wasn't going to be a good job for me. And I tried side hustles. I had many different types of side hustles that I tried to start that I thought I could grow into something, like selling other products, selling my own products, making handmade items. I've tried it all. I've done it all. And if you're working full time and you've tried to start a side hustle, you know the struggle of just making time for everything and then having a family to look after on top of it and everyday life. So it was always a constant struggle. And I just knew deep in my heart that I just wanted to work for myself. And I was frustrated of having to go to a job all the time and have someone tell me what to do. And yeah, I've heard it all before. Well, nobody likes their job. You just have to keep doing it anyway. And it just didn't make sense to me. It did not resonate with me. That cannot be true. That is not why we are put here on this earth. There has to be more. I just wanted to wake up every day and be excited for what I could accomplish that day, for what I was going to do, for what I was going to create in the world. That is all that I wanted. And I just felt so far from that. So I was in that place for a long time. It was just, you were literally just getting by. You were just stumbling through life with your eyes closed, basically. And it wasn't that fun. It wasn't great. And then we were back to 2020 where we ended up getting a divorce because that wasn't working out. Here I am now in 2024. And I took my year off in 2020. When did I start? August of 22. I started my year off until August of 23. It was 8 months into my year off. Then I decided that I should get back into art after 30 years. And that was a really big epiphany for me because it wasn't something that I had thought about for many years. Sure, I did creative things here and there. I was always doing DIYs and I was sewing occasionally, and I would make art occasionally if something came up that I needed something for, but it wasn't anything that I thought about pursuing full time because I really didn't know what the possibilities were. And I'm so happy to live in an age right now with the internet and with everything that's going on online and all the possibilities. I've been researching and educating myself and following things online just about what are people doing these days and how are they making money and how are creatives doing it and what things are people doing with art and creativity and all the possibilities. And my head was swimming for a long time. There was so many things. And I finally just dawned on me one day. I'm like, get back into art. Why aren't you doing something with art? Because I was just trying to figure out something I could do to grow a business with, that I could be an entrepreneur and be self-employed and start a business. But all the ideas that I kept coming up with, they never just felt right in my soul. They sounded exciting and they were definitely things I can do. I'm obsessed with learning about anything to do with entrepreneurship and building a business. It just excites me. But I love being creative and I love art. So I finally got back to the place where I decided I should get into art, which was great. But if any of you make art, you know that art is a very broad topic. Art and creativity is a very broad topic. So I gave myself some time and I just got back into art. I said, let me just play and explore and experience art again, just the actual doing of the art, making art. And I tried all the different medias. I bought all new art supplies because I had a few things, but I needed new stuff because that's what you do when you do art. You buy supplies because it's fun. So I did watercolor, I did gouache, I did acrylics, I did my colored pencils, my Derwent Inktense pencils that you activate with water, like watercolor pencils. I did digital work and I just experimented, and you can go back and see some of my videos of my art journey if you're interested in seeing some of the stuff that I worked on. And I just started creating and playing around and seeing what felt good and what I enjoyed, what materials I enjoyed using the most, what mediums, and what types of things I liked to create. And also at the same time exploring all the different ways that you can make an income with art, which was very eye-opening. There are so many different ways that you can monetize your art, or if you want to build a career based on your art and your creativity, there's so many ways that you can go about it. I know it's going to take a bit of time to get there, but I'm going to get there. So anyways, I now at the point where I am just playing around with art and I'm making stuff, and now I need to figure out, and then now what's going to be my focus. I guess I've been experimenting and playing with art just over a year now. And I've finally figured out where I want to be and how I want to do it. So if you're still here for this long, thanks for sticking by. this is probably the part that you wanted to hear about, but I am going to get into the niche of fashion, travel, and lifestyle illustration predominantly. Which brings me back full circle, 30 years, fashion design, doing illustration and stuff in fashion design in college back in the early 90s. And here I am again doing fashion illustrations again, and I love it and I'm here for it. And I forgot about how much I like doing that, because with the fashion illustration, I find like you can be so expressive with it, but you can also do the fine details, which I love. I want to incorporate both of those things. So yeah, I'm going back into fashion illustration, but I also want to expand that into travel and lifestyle, so I can incorporate a little bit of a bigger niche and not so specific. And when I tell you about my streams of income, then you'll understand why. But I also don't want to pigeonhole myself into one small little thing and then in a couple years be bored with that. So this will give me a little larger scope that I can work with and work within. So now you might want to know, how are the ways that I plan on making a full-time art career with this niche of fashion, travel, lifestyle. So I have 5 different ways that I'm planning on spreading out into, because I think it's really important in any business to have multiple streams of income and not have all of your eggs in one basket. Because at any given time, we don't know what's going to happen in this world. It's a crazy time we're living in. Anything can happen, and you don't want to risk that one stream of income, suddenly something happens and it's cut off and you can't do that one stream of income anymore. And you also want to build a few things out that are a little more passive income, so that you're not having to do the work to make the money all the time, but some things you do the work up front and then the money can come over time automatically and passively. So I think there needs to be a really good variety in there of active and passive incomes, and that you need to kind of spread it out over a couple different things, so that, like I said, if one thing's not working, you have other things to fall back on if you are relying on that income. So what are the 5 ways that I'm planning on making income with my art, specifically fashion, travel, and illustration? So the first thing is that I'm going to be offering custom illustrations for weddings and special events. So doing, say, custom illustrations of wedding gowns or special details that maybe people want to incorporate in their wedding invitations and their maybe signage, or any kind of illustration that has to do with weddings. So custom wedding illustrations, which I will be offering basically through Etsy. I'll have my listings on Etsy, like to start anyway. So that is one thing that I want to do, because I think anything to do with the wedding industry is a good way to make an income, because everyone loves to spend money on a wedding. So I think that's the first thing I'm going to do. And it could cover, if people want fashion illustrations done of other kinds of special events, then I can definitely do that as well. But that's kind of the first area that I'm going to be starting with. So currently I am just starting with some samples of my illustrations, like some sample drawings, so that I can get my listings up on Etsy and start advertising that I can do custom illustrations for people to celebrate their special days. So I'm really excited about doing that. And then the second thing I want to do is also on Etsy. We'll be offering art prints, but I want to make them kind of fashion related, kind of girly, fashion, travel, and lifestyle. That's where that comes in. So just making really fun images and art pieces as, like, say, icons of things, like maybe accessories, fashion sketches, travel locations, and lifestyle things that are a little more luxurious or fun or girly, enjoying life, that kind of stuff. So I want to make those kind of illustrations. And then art prints. I did buy a really good printer because I was already going to start selling art prints, but I didn't know what kind. I have been selling art prints on Etsy, but they are all kind of more like a abstract. Like I did them digitally with my Procreate app on my iPad. And I've been offering them as print-on-demand prints for the last while. And that's interesting, but I realized that wasn't the direction that I wanted to go. So I'm going to get back into the things I just said and start making art for that purpose, and then offer art prints in those areas instead. So I'm really excited, and I'm going to print them myself and ship them out to customers because I bought some really beautiful fine art paper and a good printer, and that is something I wanted to get back into, shipping out something to people, because I like to be able to control the quality and what people are receiving. And while print on demand is a great option for some people, you don't make much money off it because the profit margins are very low. And I don't have any control over how people receive things. I can't do my branding on them. I can't package them really pretty. There's that whole aspect of it. So it's kind of like pros and cons. You can either make a little bit of money and have no control, or you can make more money but then have to do more work, but then you can also make sure that your customers are getting a really great product because you're the one sending it out. So that's the second thing. The third thing kind of follows art prints, because all of those images that I create to put on art prints and sell myself, I then want to create a portfolio with, and then get those images licensed to companies that want to use my art on their products and get into art licensing, which would be my third stream of income. And I'm going to do a whole video about art licensing down the road if people are interested in knowing more about it. I'm also going to do a video on should you sell on Etsy, because it's not for everyone and there are pros and cons to it, but that's where I'm starting right now. But I will do a full video on that as well. So yeah, art licensing is my third stream of income. And then the fourth thing was something I just came across recently, and I'm hoping to do it, but we'll see, because it's a little scary. But I found out that people are doing something now at weddings and events called live illustration. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you've seen people do it. Some people do like live painting, where they actually do like acrylic or oil painting, like at the venue of the bride and groom in their venue, and it's a beautiful detailed fine art painting. That's not what I'm doing. I'm doing live illustration, like fashion illustration. So I would be drawing the guests, like very quick sketches of the guests, and then they get that print or that little sketch to take home as their wedding favor, basically. So the bride and groom would hire me to come in and basically have a little table there at their wedding, and I would draw the guests, and then they would take home their little sketch of them in whatever their outfit is. So it can be like as couples or like singles, single ladies if they just want a quick sketch of their dress. It's not very detailed, like you don't detail their face or anything. It's more suggestive. Maybe you draw their little eye or something, like to make it seem like a face, but it's not about getting detailed. It's just about a quick capture of their outfit for the wedding. And you take like 5 or 6 minutes per person, kind of. You obviously, some bigger weddings, you can't draw everybody there, but you can only get done as many people as like first come first serve kind of thing. But it's also like it's part of the entertainment of the wedding, because people can come and watch you as you draw. And so I need to practice my quick sketches, my fast fashion sketches of people. I'm going to practice that, because that would be a really great stream of income to get into. And some people would pay for you to come and travel to their location of their wedding sometimes. So I see people all over the world that are doing this, that get sent different places to do live wedding illustrations at different locations. It seems crazy and exciting to me. So it's definitely something that I want to try, because I think that would be really fun and very lucrative as well. And yeah, so I just found out about that and I got really excited, because I'm like, I can do that. I think that sounds fun. And I think it's not for everyone, because you have to it's a bit of under pressure, and you have to deal with people and be around a lot of people sometimes. So not everybody wants to do that anymore, but I think it'd be okay to do that once in a while. But I just think it would be fun, and it's a great way to practice my quick, expressive fashion illustrations, and people really enjoy it. They're excited to take home a little piece of art that actually represents them in that moment. But I think that's really fun, so I'm excited to try that. So that was the fourth stream of income. That one might take a while for me to get into, like maybe over the next year sometime. And then the fifth and final thing that I plan on doing is this YouTube channel that you're watching. So I started it to document my journey of becoming a full-time artist, to hopefully inspire other people to do the same, especially midlife creative women that have just always wanted to do something but didn't know how to get started, or didn't think they could or should get started, just doing something that they feel brings them back to life a little bit. And so I really wanted to do this channel to just inspire everybody, and also document for my own sake, where I could go back and look at it years from now and say, oh my gosh, remember when I started there, and this is how I started, and this is the way that my journey went, and the time it took me to do different things, and the timelines, and just watching it start from the beginning and then see what I can build going forward. So YouTube is fun. Now that I've been working again like 4 days a week, I don't have a lot of time, which is why you haven't seen a lot of videos, but I'm really trying hard this year to get at least 2 videos a month, if not 4. But it takes a lot of time, and I have to kind of balance doing my art and doing YouTube and doing my full-time job and then living the rest of my life. So I will try to do as many videos as possible, but I will definitely do one at least every 2 weeks. And I have some great topics that I want to cover that I think could help people out. And if you have any other topics about, getting into art and creativity and entrepreneurship and starting a creative or art business, leave it in the comments. I would love to, find out what people are the most interested in, what you have the most questions about. So I do hope to keep documenting my process over the next couple years as I grow, and eventually I hope I want to say I give myself a couple years, maybe 2 to 3 years, realistically, that it might take me to get to a place where I am a full-time artist. I feel like that's a realistic goal. So we'll see. If it happens sooner, amazing. If it takes longer, it is what it is. I wanted to try to do it in the least stressful way. So, working in the margins of my life when I can get things done, and adding things on as they make sense, because you can't do them all at the same time. So I've tried to make it into a realistic step-by-step process of layering things on as I get to them. And I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to the possibilities. I'm looking forward to see where I get to and what comes up. And these things could change. I could stumble across something else that just takes me sideways. I have no idea. I could find a couple more income streams that I feel like I want to add into it. What those would be, I have no idea until it makes sense. So I'm really here to just enjoy the journey and the process, because we have to remember that there is no finish line. So, stick around and let's do the journey together. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.